Hi, my name is Alan Raimas, and this is my friend and longtime colleague, Paul Fjelsta. And we want to talk to you a little bit about behavior management as it relates to improvement efforts. Paul and I go back a long ways in the field of improvement, some 30 years, doing all kinds of project work in lots of different companies, lots of different industries, a lot of different experiences, both good and bad. We started work together over 20 years ago at the Raimas Group. At one time owned our own business together, etc. So we've seen a lot of the same things. We have had successes, some failures along the way, but what we've also been able to do, because we've been in a lot of different companies, is watch how organizations deal with improvement efforts, how they set it up, how they try to manage it. When we can watch it from a distance as observers, we've often been able to learn things that we've then been able to build back into our own approach, because you can see, without being responsible for it, how you can fail. So we want to talk to you a little bit about that, because the record on improvement efforts, and by that I mean of all kinds, Six Sigma programs, lean, re-engineering, technology development projects, anything that you can consider to be the development of a organization change for whatever reason, run as a project. The record on that ain't great. The number that's thrown around a lot, but there's quite a bit of data behind it, is up to 70% of improvement efforts fail. Tends to be some of the same causes behind it over and over again, and that's our area of focus. Where that failure rate tends to come from, more often than not, is either ignoring or mismanaging, misunderstanding what you can call the human side. Not understanding what has to change at a performer level, as well as what leaders have to do and what kind of involvement they have to have in order to make projects successful. A lot of times what we've seen is things will start off well. The leader role is to champion things, to get people excited, to say, let's tackle this thing, you're off to the races, and then they kind of disappear. They vacate the place and leave things run very often off a cliff. So we think that's one of the big missing elements. But the other big missing elements is not understanding what it is that people do. So if it's a process improvement project, what is it that they're actually doing now that has to change, and then building in the precise things that is going to cause that behavior change. It just seems to be, in many efforts, ignored. The technical side gets all the attention, the behavior side or the people side, the soft side, if you want to call it that, tends to be ignored. So while there's a lot of lip service to that, a lot of lip service to culture, it's really not dealt with very effectively at all, in our opinion.
And so just to elaborate a little bit on the change, traditional change management relies a lot on communications and stakeholder management. And those are very necessary, but it is not all that is required. And so what we have really developed is a way to really pinpoint the behaviors, performers and leaders, in the current state as well as in design them into the future state, that really constitute, well, where's the intellectual capital or the human capital in this process? And so we utilize the early work. In the earliest part, one of the key principles is to develop some deliverables, okay? And whether it's a business process architecture or a value stream map, it's to get the behavioral dynamics up on those deliverables and engage the leaders with those deliverables throughout the project in order to develop their understanding that there's a whole behavioral dynamic here as well as process and technology. And that's one of the key things. And so illustratively, we have deliverable, we call it a behaviorally annotated process, and we do those in the current state as well as the future state. And it's a great tool in the current state because the project team, and thus the leaders, when they stakeholder with them, really see how behavior plays out, the key behaviors in the process. And then with that understanding, we actually build into the future state behaviorally annotated process. We focus on those key behaviors and critical behaviors, and we build in the reinforcing leader behaviors into the workflow. And so it's a whole different story when you look at a behaviorally annotated process versus traditional technology or workflow processes. And we've done this now for a number of years, and it's extremely effective if you start doing it early, if you engage the leaders on a regular basis with the appropriate level of deliverables, because ultimately you end up engaging the leaders to be sure that those critical behaviors in the future state, those are the ones that really are the most important, is how do you get leaders and peer groups to provide positive reinforcing consequences for those behaviors. This is all about how do you build performance, sustainable performance, i.e. discretionary effort into your process. It's not about have to, it's about building in want to. And that's the beauty of the behavioral science weave into this, is you're integrating into the deliverables that CM folks use, business analysts use, process professionals use, PMs use. Everyone's working in their silo. What we've done is we've created this integrated set of deliverables, and it works fantastic in terms of getting change done more effectively, quicker, and adopted with far less resistance than traditional ways.
Well, and I do think, a good number of people hearing this might say, well, we got that. We've got that covered. We do have change management. We've got tools and techniques in place to deal with that side of things. But as Paul said, it typically amounts to developing a communication plan, identifying stakeholders, getting them up front to communicate the message, etc. And dealing with resistance to change are kind of the three things that change management seems to be all about. But when you think about it, why is there resistance to change? It's because there's really not enough attention paid to exactly what the changes need to be and how you're going to help the performers make those changes, how you're going to support them while implementing, and how you make those changes permanent. That tends to be missing. Resistance to change, to me, is a symptom of doing this wrong and incompletely. And we have a different way of doing it.
And again, it's all about engaging leadership. Okay, it's always about leadership, and so the key is how do you meet them where they're at with the right kinds of deliverables in the right context, using a minimal amount of time in order to help them understand the behavioral dynamics at play, as well as the process dynamics and the technology dynamics. And we've done it now for a number of years. It works really well, exceptionally well, when you do it well. Thank you.